All right, well, there's 13 weeks to go to the Boston Marathon. It's a perfect time to start digging into those numbers. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Running Otaku. I am the Running Otaku, and you have tuned in to episode 13 of the Boston Marathon SUB-3 journey. Today's episode is entitled Numbers. Why? Well, we are going to dig into the numbers and see if I'm making any progress at all. Before jumping into that analysis, I thought I'd share with you a little bit about my daily life. You see, last night I was taking a test and I passed. Thank you. It was for a real estate license, and that would entitle me to serve as a real estate broker here in the state of Oregon. You see, after a 20 some odd year career in tech, with the last 16 at a startup that was sometimes in precarious situations, sometimes thriving, we were acquired. And I worked for the acquiring company for a few years and then retired a couple of years ago. And so ever since we've moved to Portland, I've been planning what's next. And for me, what's next is real estate. So I got my broker's license, but my long-term goal is really to get into property development. My idea is to build what I call right-size homes for families, not too big, not too small, and something with a small impact on the environment. And so in order to really know what families in the area want, I thought a great way of doing research is actually to become an agent and help these families buy and sell their own homes and learn from them what they need so that I can hopefully provide them with great housing in the future. Another thing, so in the last couple of episodes, I've been talking about my running shoes. And if you may remember, I ended up returning my Salomon, Sense Rides, just because I had a little bit of problem in the forefoot. Well, I've got a replacement. This gray, monstrous looking shoe is the Hoka One Speed Goat 2. Excuse me. So I actually have run with the Speed Goat 2s before. They were my go-to running shoe for much of last year for the trails. And I like them because even though they're preposterously big and thick looking, they're actually light, much lighter than most trail shoes. And they have some flexibility here. There's no rock plate down here because the shoe's so thick, you're not going to feel any rock you step on. And for me, my trail runs are not super technical. I'm using them as my long run, so my 2 hour plus runs on Sundays. And so I want a shoe that's comfortable, fairly lightweight, and can handle some terrain, but I don't need to climb up Mount Everest or anything like that. So these will be back in the rotation, and be on the lookout for some of my footage when I'm running the trails in these shoes. So before diving into the numbers, just a quick update on where I am. There are 13 weeks left until the Boston Marathon. My training has gone really well so far. It's a 7-day-a-week program, and I haven't missed one day yet. And I've hit all of my long runs and my hard workouts. My easy runs, of which there are about 3 a week, have been easy enough to allow me to recover in time to do the hard runs and not build up fatigue. I still haven't got sick yet, although I feel like it's getting close, so we'll see. But anyways, things have gone really well. On Tuesday, which was yesterday, I did an interval workout at my critical velocity pace, which is kind of proprietary to Tin Man. And the way Tin Man describes critical velocity is it's essentially the pace you can hold if you're running at your maximum for 30 minutes. So for me, that's pretty close to my 8K pace. And so I did intervals, 6 by 3 minutes with a 1 minute recovery in between. And of course, a bunch of hill work after that and some striders on the flat. But what I thought I would do is, since this is the third time I've run critical velocity intervals, was to compare my performance on Tuesday, which was yesterday, to the times I've run the same workout 2 weeks ago and then in the middle of December. So let's go ahead and take a look at those numbers. Okay, so I've got my trusty iPad with me with all the numbers, so let's get right into it. This first graph shows the 3 workouts. So this first one was on December 12th. This was December 25th, and this was January 15th. The first one, as you can see, I was averaging 6 minutes 14 seconds per mile on my critical velocity intervals, which is the equivalent of 3 minutes 52 seconds per kilometer. And then you can see I dropped about 8 seconds a mile or 5 seconds a kilometer a few weeks later. And then that run I did yesterday was even faster, 4 seconds a mile faster or 2 seconds a kilometer. So overall, from that first run to the third one, it was a 3% improvement, which is great. So I was able to run at a quicker pace. Let's look into the power numbers. And here you can see there's also an equivalent 3% improvement. So 273 watts, and then the second workout was 278, and then yesterday the third workout 281 watts. So again, 3% improvement. So basically what this means is I ran 3% harder in terms of power and got about roughly 3% faster in terms of pace. So that makes sense. If you're going to be running at higher power, you should have a higher pace. The question is, was I running more efficiently, or was I just running at a higher percent of my maximum, just making the workout harder? So I wanted to look at a couple more numbers. The next here is cadence, just as a, let's call it an indirect look at form and technique. So the first run was at 181 steps per minute, and then on December 25th, 177, and then yesterday, 185. So a 2% improvement there. So I am, at least in terms of cadence and ground contact time and turning over my stride more quickly, I'm doing better. And then finally, maybe the most important number here is the running efficiency. And again, what this does is it looks at the speed you're running, taking into account the watts per kilogram or your power to weight ratio. And in all three of these runs, I was exactly the same weight, which was 140 pounds, which I believe converts to 63.6 kilometers. So the weight wasn't a factor here in all of these numbers, since it was the same. But you can see my running efficiency on the first workout was 1.004, then went up to 1.008, and then back down again to 1.005. So from the first workout to the third one yesterday, it was a 0.1% improvement. So it's hard to tell. I mean, that's within the round off error even. But at least, even though there's only 3 data points, there's the inkling of some evidence with this in the cadence numbers that I am running maybe a bit more efficiently and able to eke out maybe just a little bit more speed per watt, which is what you want to do to improve. But I think the lion's share of my improvements is just coming from my overall fitness, and that I'm able to sustain a higher amount of power over a longer period of time. And in fact, let's look at that in more detail here. This graph comes from my page within the Stride Power Center website, and it's essentially my power curve. So what it does is it looks at essentially what is my maximum sustainable wattage at different time limits. So for example, at like 5 or 10 seconds, I can hold all the way up to 500 watts. Once you get to 2 minutes, I can only hold, according to this, it looks like about 325, and so on and so forth. So the shape of this curve is important because the steeper it is, it means you're falling off a lot here and you're not able to sustain that power in that range. So from 10 seconds to 2 minutes, you can see there's a huge fall off. And I think that's pretty common. I mean, most of us can run pretty fast when we're sprinting down the straightaway. But if you need to hold that for a minute or two, you slow down precipitously. But as you can see on the positive side, from 2 minutes, to 20, it's not that steep of a curve. So I'm able to hold my power pretty good. And from 70 minutes to 170, the same kind of thing. It's pretty flat here. This psychedelic rainbow donut thing in the middle is actually mapping out the workouts that I've done. Now, I don't know if this is over the past 3 months or 6 months or a year, but the deeper red, the more intense. That means that the more I've done runs in that zone. So for example, where the pointer is now, it's roughly at 5 minutes and about 250 watts. So that's kind of the most typical workout I've done is, 5-minute stretches at 250 watts. If I go up to here, for instance, this is probably equivalent to maybe 30 or 40 seconds at 330 watts. So I've done some of those too, but I haven't run that much time overall in that zone. So you can see where the lion's share of my training has been. It's in this zone right here. And so if you look at all the numbers, so for sprinting, maybe for 10 seconds, according to Stride, I can hold 500 watts. And then for 1500 meters, I can hold about 306 watts. And here's my 3K wattage, the 5K wattage, the 8K wattage, 10K wattage. So the 8K and 10K, they're pretty similar distances. So the wattage is only 3 off, so it's pretty close there. And then the 15K, half marathon, 245 watts. And the marathon, according to Stride, I should be able to hold 241 watts for the whole marathon. So these numbers may not be exact. The best way to validate them is to actually do a race and see. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So in the month of February and in March, I have 15K each month there. And so what I'm probably going to do is run the first one pretty close to 265 watts on average the entire way and see if I have anything left in the tank or not. If I do, then when I run that 15K the month later, I'm going to increase it from maybe 265 to something closer to 270 and see if I can hold that. And I think after doing those two 15Ks, I'll get a pretty good indication of what my power curve is in the hour to hour and a half range. And I think that will really help me determine at what wattage and what pace I can hold for the Boston Marathon in, in April. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button. If you really like what you saw, and I hope you do, please click the subscribe button and click the little bell right next to the subscribe button. That way, every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified right away. And you can stay abreast and follow me on my journey as I try and set a personal record and finally go sub-3 in a marathon. And that marathon, I hope, will be Boston Marathon this April 15th. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.